Hello, and welcome to Stories from India, a podcast where we talk about myths, legends, and folk tales from India. I am your host, Narad Muni, and I'm a mythological character myself. I have the gift of eternal life and knowledge of the past, the present, and the future. By profession, I'm a traveling musician and a storyteller. So, the way I'm doing my job is by podcast. In this episode, we are going to do a couple of stories from the Panchatantra. The Panchatantra is a series of stories written by Vishnu Sharma in ancient India. It was meant to be an educational guide for a few spoiled rich princes so they could grow up to become good administrators. Though both of today's stories have to do with a person saving a tiger from mortal danger, the consequences of rescuing said tiger were very different in the two stories. So let's jump in. Our first story begins with a farmer and his wife in a village in ancient India. The farmer was not very good at farming, and his wife didn't know how to either. The farmer had inherited the property, but he pretty much ran the farm into the ground. Maybe he should not have tried planting seeds in the peak of winter, or irrigating his crops with orange juice instead of water. But what do I know? I'm just a storyteller, not a farmer. Anyway, their present problem was that they had run out of orange juice, so they had no way to irrigate their crops. Not managing to harvest any oranges from his farm either, his wife decided that enough was enough. The kids don't have a bite to eat, she said. Honey, he replied, maybe you don't remember, but we had to sell all our goats last year, the farmer said. His wife rolled her eyes and said, obviously, I was talking about our very human children and not the baby goats. The farmer, Bhola, had an idea how to solve this problem. I know what we can do. Our problem is that we are not receiving enough rain. Maybe what we need is to solve this naturally. We need lots of rain. Let's buy a lot of aerosol spray cans and use them. That will release a lot of chlorofluorocarbons into the atmosphere. There will be a hole in the ozone layer. Glaciers will melt faster. There will be more evaporation and more rain. And then we will have no shortage of rainwater. Bola, you and your silly ideas. I have a much better one now. Leave the farm to me. You go do something else. Go to the town. Do some manual labor or something and earn some money. This was not the first time Bhola had heard this from his wife. He finally gave in. He packed what little food he had and started off in the direction of town. As is usual in the stories on this show, the path to town led through a forest. And as also sometimes happens in these stories, there was a well right in the middle of the forest. Now, the middle of a forest is a very questionable location for a well, given how unlikely it is that someone will stumble on it. But there the well was, and Bhola did stumble on it. Figuratively, not literally. Bhola thought he was in luck. He had been hungry and thirsty for a while. At least he could quench his thirst here. But when he drew closer, he was disappointed. It wasn't that the well was empty. On the contrary, it was full, but not of water. It was full of creatures. He stared down for a bit and spotted a tiger, a monkey, a snake, and a regular human being. Help us out! All four of them screamed, all at once. Bhola was surprised. Not that a snake and a monkey and a tiger could speak the human language, but that this seemed like a classic setup. Wait a minute, he said. Is this a logic puzzle or something? In which order should I help you out so that you don't eat each other up? Obviously not, said the monkey. If we could have eaten each other, we'd have done so already. We've been down here for days and we are hungry. And why is a representative set of creatures here? A carnivore, a herbivore, a reptile, and a human? There must be a moral in this story, said Bola. Yes, yes, don't skip ahead to the end of the story, said the snake. Get us out, she added. And why shouldn't I only help the human out? The snake can bite me, the monkey can scratch me, the tiger can eat me. But the snake, the tiger, and the monkey all promised that they would not harm Bhola in any way. So Bhola looked for some creepers, tied them together to form a long rope, and let out all of the creatures one by one. The man was first. He said he was Sunar, a goldsmith in town. And not just a goldsmith, he was the goldsmith, with an exclusive contract to make all the gold for the royal family. He departed, thanking his savior again. He also insisted that when Bhola visited town, he was welcome to stay at Sunar's place. Snake departed next, promising that whenever Bhola needed anything, he only had to think of the snake, and she would instantly appear. The monkey was next. As soon as he was out, he grabbed some fruits from his store in his treehouse and offered them to Bhola. Bhola, who until then had been disappointed by what he thought were empty promises from Sunar and the snake, felt that his luck was now changing. These fruits were more food than he had eaten in the previous week. And he was right about his trajectory. After the monkey departed, the tiger offered something to Bhola. It was a golden necklace. Where did you pull that from? You don't have any pockets in that striped orange fur of yours, do you? Never you mind, said the tiger. Just take it and leave. I found it on the forest floor, and it looked shiny and nice, so I kept it. Bhola thought this was great. All he had to do now was to go to town to his new friend, Sunar, and sell the golden necklace. Then he would have the capital he needed to invest in his irrigation project. He had realized he had been doing things wrong all along. Orange juice could not help plants grow. He had to use pineapple juice instead. But then, on second thoughts, his wife would much rather prefer if he invested part of his money into mutual funds and such, and used the rest to buy food. So that's what he ultimately decided to do. On going to Sunar's house, Bhola promptly asked the goldsmith to buy the necklace from him. Sure, said Sunar. Let me go take a quick look at it. He went inside his workshop, but it was not a quick look that he took. In fact, he returned a whole hour later with an army. The king's army was here to arrest Bhola on a charge of theft. You see, when Sunar began examining the necklace, he saw his own trademark. This was a necklace he himself had made. He brought out his records, and it did not take him long to realize that this was a necklace he had made for the king's daughter, the princess, and it was reported stolen, along with the princess herself. People speculated that she had gotten separated from her companions in the forest, and no one had seen her since. There was a huge reward for anyone with any clue at all about the princess or anything to do with her. This was Sunar's chance. So he dashed out the back door, leaving Bhola still waiting for him in the waiting room. Sunar came back with the king's army. They promptly arrested Bhola and put him in jail. No one cared to hear his side of the story. They stopped listening after the first time he said he had no idea what happened to the princess. In jail, and with no hopes of getting out, Bhola suddenly remembered the snake. No sooner had he thought of her, she showed up. She quickly got the whole story from him. When he was done telling it, she had a plan. She said it would start with her biting the queen. She whispered further instructions to Bhola and disappeared. Bhola was skeptical, but decided to go with it. The next day, there was shocking news. It spread like wildfire, so even the jail guards were talking about it. The queen had been taken ill. She was unconscious, and no doctor could explain what was wrong with her. That's my cue, thought Bhola. And then he said to the guards, I know what's wrong with your queen. I can make her better. The guards laughed and ignored him. Bhola added, Well, if anything happened to her, I will be sure to let the king know when he visits next that the reason he's a widower is that two jail guards refused to help when they could have saved her life. All right, said one of the guards, and channeled this up his management chain. Of course, ultimately, this reached the king, as everyone in the hierarchy wanted to cover themselves in case it later came out that a cure had been available. So, exactly as planned, Bhola was brought before the queen. She was still lying down in her bed. As the snake had arranged, Bhola tapped the queen's right ankle 3 times. This was the instruction he had received from the snake. When he did that, the effect of her poison wore off instantly. The queen sat up in bed and, ignoring all the crowd milling around her, calmly ordered her breakfast to be brought in bed. For having saved the queen, Bhola at least got to explain to the king his side of the story. That's all it took. The king completely understood that Bhola was not to blame for his daughter's disappearance. But he never did get closure. Kind of like how they found some parts of the MH370 aircraft, but never really learned what happened to it. The king awarded Bhola some money. Not enough for him to retire, but maybe enough for him to try a different small scale business that was not related to agriculture. And by the time he got home, Bhola saw that his wife had everything under control. She had figured out all the things they were doing wrong in farming, and she had fixed them. Our second story begins in a similar way. It's about a man named Saral. Saral was also a farmer. He was passing through a forest en route to somewhere else. When he did, guess what he came across? Not Bhola or the well from the previous story, but a cage. A cage that had a tiger inside it. As soon as the tiger saw Saral, it begged for him to open the cage. I don't know the combination, said Saral. It's a simple bolt. Just undo it, said the tiger. If it's so simple, why don't you undo it yourself? Asked Saral. But the tiger simply answered that he had no opposable thumbs. Well, tiger, the real reason I don't want to open the cage is that I suspect you'll just eat me. You look hungry, and judging by your 5 o'clock shadow, you've certainly been here at least a whole day without eating. I promise I won't, said the tiger. You know the promise was good enough for Bhola in the previous story. Imagine, I might give you a golden necklace too, said the tiger. A golden necklace that got him put in jail, said Saral. But it did help him in the end, said the tiger. Listen, just do it. You have my word. I will not harm you. So Saral opened the bolt and let the tiger out. But the moment he did, the tiger began advancing on Saral, licking his lips. Stop, you promised, said Saral. Too late. I am hungry, said the tiger, advancing even further. But Saral called a technical timeout and insisted that they consult with an impartial judge whether it was okay for the tiger to eat Saral. I could just eat him and be done, thought the tiger. But then another thought occurred to him. Maybe he'll lead me to my next few meals. This impartial judge he spoke of must be another animal. So the two walked a bit until they found an animal. It was a bull. They presented the story to the bull, and the bull said, I worked for my master my whole life. He fed me then, but then, when I was older, he discarded me like a used toy. I have no love for humans. I think the tiger should eat Saral. That was good enough for the tiger, but obviously not a great outcome for Saral. He pleaded with the tiger, and they decided to go ask another judge. They found another creature, an old dog. And again, the dog had been ill treated by his master and promptly voted for the tiger to eat Saral. A similar thing happened with the horse. And again, Saral pleaded with the tiger for one last chance. The tiger, who had mentally made a note to visit the bull, the dog, and the horse after eating Saral, thought one more lead was totally fine by him. So the two met a jackal. The jackal according to ancient Indian wisdom, was the cleverest of animals. Or so they thought. This particular specimen seemed to have trouble understanding basic things. He kept saying that he just could not understand what they meant when they said the tiger was in the cage. What does in the cage mean? Does it mean the tiger was standing on top of the cage? Or was the cage on top of the tiger? I just don't understand this, said the jackal. Saral and the tiger both tried explaining and even drawing things out on a piece of paper. But the jackal just didn't seem to get it. Exasperated, the tiger decided that a demonstration in 3 dimensions would work better than the one on paper. He got into the cage and closed the door. "This is how I was before Saral found me," he said. At that, the jackal advanced quickly and bolted the door. He managed to do this despite not having opposable thumbs. The tiger realized that he had been duped. Saral breathed a huge sigh of relief. That was the last time he would save a tiger, either from cages or by contributing to a Project Tiger fund. Whether good or evil, he had had enough of tigers. That's all for now. A couple of notes on the show. As usual, the names of the characters represent what they do. Bhola is the Hindi word for innocent. So is Saral, the character from the second story. Sunar is the Hindi word for goldsmith. In the first story, the obvious moral is not to trust humans. Humans cheat. Animals are faithful. The more general message here is to not always trust someone just because they appear similar to yourself. The second story has quite the opposite message. It shows that powerful animals are untrustworthy. Don't take a chance. Don't release them from their cages for a vague reward. We have done other Panchatantra stories before. I've linked them in the show notes. Check them out. In the next episode, we'll do another folktale. This one is from the eastern Indian state of Bengal. If you have comments or suggestions, or if there are particular stories you would like to hear, please do let me know by leaving a comment or a review on the site sfipodcast.com or tweet at sfipodcast. You can also find me on Instagram and Facebook. Be sure to subscribe to the show to get notified automatically of new episodes. Thanks to all of you listeners for your continued support and your feedback. The music is from purpleplanet.com. That's purple-planet.com. I'll see you next time.